The impact of climate change has been uneven and disproportionate. Emerging countries are bearing the brunt of the risk, even though they have contributed the least to the crisis. So how should we look at environmental issues in the broader context of climate justice, social justice? I have three catalysts with me today, all with solutions to the problems and who've been very active in solving those problems. Danielle, I want to start with you. You're tapping space and space technologies to help solve the problems on Earth, help the most vulnerable. What's the motivation? What's the vision?
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's wonderful to be with all of you. I actually first want to kind of rearrange the title of the session a little bit, because I do agree with the premise that we need to ask, what is the role of those who have created pollution and greenhouse gas emissions, and what is the role of those who experience it? But what's so exciting is that I work every day with leaders who are innovative visionaries from especially coastal cities around the world in West Africa, East Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America. And although they do experience many risks, I wouldn't just use the word vulnerable to describe them. I definitely would use the word innovative. And part of my excitement is that I'm a space engineer. I also research social science to ask how do we understand social justice. And I bring them together to think about sustainability in collaboration with these innovative leaders, both on Earth but also in space.
How are you looking at it, Shamim?
When we talk about this, I'm a founder of Chil Artificial Intelligence Lab. So when you look at the vulnerable communities, there are those issues that affect them that most of the people don't give attention most of the time. For example, food waste. Food waste contributes third to global warming. That is next to China and US. But when you look at the vulnerable communities, this is something that is very normal, and then it's not given that much attention. So climate change is going to affect us. Yes, it may not affect us as the developed nations, but it's going to affect us as time goes on, because we are contributing 4% to the coal distribution in the world. So if we are really left out, or if we are not giving that much attention, since you're contributing less, this is something that is going to be affecting the vulnerable communities, which is in the future going to spread faster than what everyone would think of.
Before I get to what you're doing specifically, Marjun, let's bring you into the discussion. You're looking for blue skies and clean water in China, and it's been quite a challenge.
Yes, exactly. In my country, we've been through this massive industrialization and urbanization, and during the process, we have the world's largest population, being moved out of poverty, raised themselves out of poverty. So it's very, very positive. But in the meantime, hundreds of millions have been exposed to the environmental pollution, exposed to health risks. Many, for a period of time, most of our cities cannot meet with our very modest air quality standards. And in those period of time, more than 300 million residents, most of them rural residents, they did not have access to sufficient safe drinking water. And in some regions, we even see diseases cropping up, and some of the diseases like cancer, rising at a high, exceptionally high rate. So yes, the justice issue is quite there, and at some moment, I myself, during all these years of research, I've been exposed to some of the particular, very specific justice issue. I still remember in one of the village, when I did my interview with a group of elderly persons, all of a sudden they knelt down in front of me, and continue to keep saying that, help, help. And the matter of fact is that the village got surrounded by quite a few companies, factories, which are the supply chain, part of the supply chain of the world's top IT brands. And but they are boys, they have been exposed to pollution from air and wastewater, but their boys got drowned in this long and complicated global supply chain. So I trust that we need to rebuild that link to connect the missing dots through data transparency. That's how we got started to build our environmental database.
And connecting the dots remains the big challenge. And Danielle, we're talking about space at a time where there's a space frenzy. We're talking about communities on Mars. We're talking about space tourism. Is what you're doing in line or in conflict with the vision out there held by the likes of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos?
Let me bring some things into perspective that I think are often lost. First, many of the things we see today that are happening in the space community are not just appearing randomly. They're coming from a long story. And so one positive story is that early on in the space era, people came together to say that actually we should have treaties that guide what happens in space. And most spacefaring nations, people that have satellites in space, have signed these treaties. And the treaties agree that space is the heritage of all humankind, meaning it belongs to all countries. So part of my work is asking, how do we
yet,
ensure
though, right?
that's reality?
At this point in time, it's just not quite yet belonging to everybody.
The question is, are the benefits being distributed equally? On one hand, you could say, well, sure, because actually we can all go outside with our cell phones, and there's multiple countries positioning satellites, and we can all have the signal for free. It's wonderful. We have businesses and all kinds of services based on satellite positioning. But on the other hand, of course, you need a whole supply chain to make the benefits useful. I often talk about how satellite positioning, communication, and Earth observation can play a key role, but we have to design the systems also on Earth to make sure people are benefiting from them. That's why I often do projects at the invitation of local leaders in places like Benin or Ghana or Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And we're working with either local leaders at the government side or universities. And they're thinking about what constraints are affecting the local use of these technologies. And we work with them to design systems. It could be a website or an information system that's going to make it really relevant to the local community. But it needs to happen all over the world.
Shamim, talk to us. Everybody says the solutions lies in technology. How are you tapping technology to get that climate justice in Africa?
Yes, the success lies in technology because, first of all, look at the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. It exposed very many people to things that they were not actually used to. Everyone actually was used to the manual way, and then they would take technology as something that it's optional, or we can do this, we can do that. So when this wave came, everything had to change. So in the bit of the climate justice in such a way, I would want to bring it out in such a way that most of the people that were doing all that, for example, the governments and all that, they had to transform everything to include technology in all the policies that they were giving the people in everything they were doing. So it had to create a very big change in everything that was being done.
And Majun, we know that data has been really critical for you. I mean, you have an app. I think it's called the Blue Map. Talk to us about the kind of data you've had to, I guess, gather to ensure that you're on the right path to getting blue skies and clean water.
Yeah, I do trust that all these issues from local air and water pollution control to the global climate change, biodiversity protection, ocean protection. We all, it's such a big and complex issue. So we need multi-stakeholder efforts, but people must be able to access the information. So 15 years ago, our organization started developing the Blue Map database. And at the beginning, very little information was available. But through years of advocacy and promotion, and we have seen a changing mindset in China. We have seen a vast development of environmental transparency. And today, in our Blue Map app, people can check more than 4,400 monitoring stations on air quality every hour. And on the water side, more than 20,000 monitoring stations on rivers and lakes and coastal seas, drinking water sources report the data. That's about 50 million, half a million pieces of data. And we're also tracking the performance of millions of companies, locate more than 7 million of the corporations on the digital map, color code each one of them based on their environmental performance. And we're very happy to see during the past 15 years, increasingly the data is being tapped, not just to help people, to fight the pollution, but also help to enable the market-based solutions like green supply chain. Now, some of the largest brands, local and multinational brands, started tapping into the data before they sign contract. They compare their list with our list, and then motivate so far 16,000 suppliers to openly address their problem. And for the first time in more recent years, for the first time, we allow people to check about we created the Blue Map of zero carbon, allowing people to check about the local, regional, all this carbon emission data, the use of coal and electricity, and also based on that, developing index to create local accountability mechanism.
Majun, I know that among the foreign companies that have come on board include the likes of Apple and Amazon. I'm just wondering how you're using that to put pressure on the government to take action.
Yeah, the data is also being very much used to, we developed the pollution information transparency index based on the data and continue to assess the performance of 120 cities in their enforcement and transparency over 10 years of time, and motivate some major change in the transparency. And the first year, I still remember, the first year we managed to only compile less than 2,000 records of violations. But earlier this year, that has topped, that number have topped 2 million. Now it's continue to grow every day. The government, for the first time in the world, have decided to allow to drive all the major emitters, tens of thousands of them, to make hourly disclosure or bi-hourly disclosure to the public on their automatic monitoring data. That's the first of its kind in the world.
Danielle, go ahead.
I was just going to respond. Congratulations on especially what you described of the ground-based data collection. As somebody who usually uses satellite data, I'm so thankful when there's also ground-based data to compare it to, because really we need each other. The satellites can see a large region and they can pass over regularly, but the ground-based data is better quality for that local answer. So I just love this opportunity to compare information from space and from the ground.
I'd just like to follow up, because you're not just tapping space and space technologies to help problems on Earth. You're also doing work in space. I mean, I think we've been to space for about, 60 years or so, and we're already doing things wrong up there?
Yeah, we could trace back to 1957 as the first time humans put objects in space, right? And this is to the Soviet Union, but many followed. And so the current reality is we've already started to put so many objects in space, satellites, parts of rockets, that we're in danger of making a lot of mess that makes it dangerous for the next generation. And this is so important. I'm an advisor to many countries that are starting their early space activity. And we have communities such as Rwanda and Tunisia and Mauritius that are putting their first satellite in space. In Latin America, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, so many countries either have a space program or a project to have people learning and working on space technology, which is wonderful. So every country has the right to have a free location that would be safe to operate their satellites. But unfortunately, countries like mine, the United States, have put so many things in space and not cleaned up our trash, and we're continuing to. Actually, there's a balance we have to strike. Many companies say, look, we will put thousands, literally thousands of satellites in space to increase internet access. I say, will the people who don't have internet access be able to afford your signal? It's not totally clear yet. But on the other hand, we have to manage these new thousands of satellites safely. So I'm at the same time asking, how do we manage our waste, such as greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere, and monitor that from space? How do we manage our waste, which is parts of satellites orbiting the Earth? And I'm actually worried already about the waste I'm expecting us to put on places like the moon as the next generation happens. We need a better solution for waste in the atmosphere, in the ocean, and in orbit in space.
Okay, we'll take note as we send more missions to space. Shamim, this is the New Economy Forum. As we emerge from the pandemic, what's your vision? What's your view of how we can emerge without leaving anyone behind, especially in a country where millions have been sent into poverty, extreme poverty, because of the pandemic?
The pandemic has taught us the new normal, so we have to work with what is there. So most of the communities that are in poverty, yes, they are low income and then they cannot be able to cope up. But then there is nothing much that you can do for them but only to cope up with the technology. All the policies have to be transformed and include technology in all the sectors. For example, for the bit of the food waste, for the bit of people have to ensure that whatever they used to do is now being changed in another way, because most of the things were being done manually, okay, partially, of some countries were already improved, but then there are those ones who are really stuck on what they are. So now that the fact that the new normal is there and we are going to work with it, we are not going to change it. So we just have to change our ways and then be able to work with what is there. The entrepreneurs have to be encouraged to have technologies that really favor the COVID-19 pandemic and also prepare for other pandemics that will come in the future. Because now that this pandemic came, most of the people are not prepared, but what about other pandemics that will come in the future? So this is something that is teaching us that next time when something comes new, we are already prepared. We have technologies that can be able to work in the different conditions. So it's about preparation wherever we are, and then we cope up with what we're supposed to do.
Did you want to add something?
I was just thinking to add even more detail to what it's like for people on the ground and with all that you're saying. So I agree with your argument. And I think in my case, I just want to highlight actually the dress I'm wearing because it comes from Benin, where I have a chance to work with a team that's worked through the pandemic, just reacting as they needed to. So there's a company called Greenkeeper Africa, and I first met them at an entrepreneurship summit hosted by the government of India and the US government, and they were saying, we are trying to address a local invasive plant, but also create jobs. And they've operated through the pandemic in West Africa despite all the risks. And they were able to continue their work to harvest this invasive plant. They create jobs by doing that. And they also convert it into a product that actually can clean up oil-based pollution, which can be used locally and throughout the region and globally. In fact, there was a major oil spill around Mauritius in this time period, and they were thinking, our product actually is very useful for this, and they can send it for cleanup. So this is a case where they're working despite the global changes, the pandemic, challenges with trade, challenges with all kinds of hindrances. We're helping them set up an information system that will have data from in the lake, water sensors, and from drone flights, and from satellite data. And this is their first time to use an information system of this type. We want to share the data publicly and engage with people who usually don't use computer-based information systems to guide their decision-making, but make that a normal thing. But it's taking several years. It's not an overnight process. And it helps us think about what access is there, whether it's to mobile-based information systems to pass data wirelessly. We're using solar panels to operate into the sensors. So there's ways to bring these into people's everyday life. And it happens in pandemics too. It's harder, but it can happen.
Marjun, we know that China's had phenomenal growth, but that has come at a cost. I mean, pollution is a huge problem there. So as China looks to emerge from this pandemic, it's been tough. But in your view, what needs to change? What is the path forward for China?
Yeah, what needs to change is this mindset that environmental protection and economic development is a zero-sum game. I think that's a forced mindset, and we need to change that. I'm very happy to see, in more recent years, China has changed its policy. Of course, much of that is also in response to the public demand for clean air, clean water. And we all know 10 years ago, Beijing and the big surrounding regions have suffered from long stretch of smoggy days. And for a week, quite a few days, the airplane could not land. And people made their voice heard, and the government responded with the decision to start monitoring and disclose PM 2.5 and ozone. And based on that, of course, it's not enough just to know which day to put on face masks or lock their children indoor. So the government followed up with a massive clean air action plan. And through all this 8 years of multi-stakeholder efforts, we managed to see some of the real progress made. China's air pollution level have been cut in general by half. In Beijing, the PM2.5 concentration have dropped from 89.5 micrograms to 38 last year. And on the water side, surface water, we also made real progress. Having said that, the mission is far from being accomplished. Today, our air quality need to be continued to improve, and then we also have new challenges on the global level, like climate change, biodiversity loss, and ocean plastics, and all this. So we need to tap into this success, the solutions based on the environmental transparency, empower people, building their awareness, empower public supervision, and then motivate government to strengthen enforcement, and then enable market-based solutions like green finance and green supply chain. I think, in this new efforts that we're going to embark, that is the carbon peak and neutrality pledge made. Over the next 40 years, China needs to completely, cut or neutralize the rest of the more than 10 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. It's going to be a very tough process, and there's a lot of challenges. The shortage, the time span between peaking and completely net zero carbon emissions. So we need to tap into some of the innovative solutions based on information technology.
Shamim, Majun talked about how you need to mobilize the community for them to be part of the solution, to empower them. How do you see that playing out, and what can happen?
Yes, he talked about a very strong point, mobilizing the community. This is showing them that they are included into what you're trying to tell them. So they would feel like they are participating more, and then they would cope up to the change that you're bringing into the community. Because if you're showing someone, or you're showing the community that you're part of the change that I'm bringing, that means there's going to be positive response compared to what was there before. So that would bring in the justice that you're talking about, that even someone who may be in a different community who may have thought that they've been left out, but then when you include everybody inside, they would say, oh my God, this is all of us, so we have to join this thing, and this is one way of ensuring that everyone benefits from all this.
For space, can you get everybody, the community on board?
We want to talk about two particular community leader categories. And I was just inspired by this amazing story we just heard about the changes in China. And I thought about the topic of biodiversity. So what strikes me is to think about the role of indigenous leaders. I think of North America, where we think of the Native Americans and the broader indigenous community across Latin America up to North America. And then across the world, there are many indigenous leaders and communities who practice traditional knowledge, and they maintain biodiversity in their lands in a way that no one else can do. So I think one point is listening to them, empowering them to be able to have sovereignty over the land that they traditionally have lived in, and then supporting their efforts toward biodiversity and toward innovative practices. It doesn't always mean ignoring technology. One of my doctoral students, Fatima Maniappa, she's asking how local leaders of indigenous communities in forest-dwelling nations within India would like to use information technology to manage their own local knowledge about how to manage the forest. So it's a combination of virtual reality and storytelling in the traditional way. And meanwhile, I've been asking indigenous leaders what their views are on space travel in the future. They also have really interesting ideas to contribute to how we can sustainably go into space and honor our terrestrial and celestial landscapes.
On that very inspiring note, Majun, Danielle, Shamim, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.